Hello, grade 12s. It's economics and welcome back. Just before the break, we were looking at the households, the government and the businesses. And we're looking at the role that they play in the secular model flow. So now we're going to carry on and we're going to look at the foreign sector because remember we're looking at an open economy, and when we're looking at an open economy, that includes the foreign sector. And if we were focusing on the closed economy, we were not going to include the foreign sector into this. So let's have a look. So in the foreign sector, we have trade between the foreign sector, the households, and the businesses. So there are three participants that interact in this particular sector. And this takes place in the foreign market in the form of imports and export. Okay, so remember, when you import, you bring products into the country, and then when you export, you sell products to other countries as well. Okay, so let's look at this concept of import and export. So, we are not a self-sufficient country, so we do rely on other countries for certain goods and services. For example, in the medical field, we rely on doctors from Cuba to come into South Africa to assist, particularly in the rural communities where there are a limited number of medical doctors available there. There are certain products that we don't have in our country, and therefore we rely on other countries to supply us with those particular products. We do export quite a lot of items, good quality items, to countries in America or to states in America, in Europe, Australia, and so on. So that is good for us. So it's good for us when we export, because then we get the foreign trade coming into the country, and also the currency as well. It's good for our economy. But when we import items from countries that have a stronger currency, that does cost us a lot of money. But we'll talk more about that later on. But for now, I want us to understand the relationship that exists in the foreign sector, between the foreign sector, the households, and the businesses. And all of this will take place in the foreign market. And also understand the concept of imports and exports in order for you to have a good understanding of what goes on in this particular sector. Then moving on to the financial sector, this consists of banks, insurance companies, households, and the JSE. Okay, so you know your major banks. I'm not going to name them. There are lots of insurance companies in South Africa. It's quite a big and lucrative business environment because we try and pass on the risk to someone else. Hence, we take out insurance policies. These range from household insurance into business insurance. So, for example, if you are running a business and you have a lot of stock that you keep in your warehouse, it is important that you take out an insurance to cover that stock, that should anything go wrong, and then you will be compensated for the losses that you have incurred. And then households, that is consumers of goods and services, and the JSE, which is the Johannesburg Stock Exchange or the Johannesburg Securities Exchange. They were initially based in the CBD in Johannesburg, and they now have moved to Sandton, where they have their new building there. So the money which the households and businesses provide are known as savings. So households over here, that's consumers, and businesses. So we provide savings because if you want to go on an exciting trip, you have to save up. And in order for you to save up, you will then use one of the banks to open a savings account so that you can save for that wonderful holiday that you've got planned. Businesses also save money in order to expand, to grow, and also to have different branches in different provinces and in different countries as well. So you can't do that, obviously, if you haven't got the financial resources in order to make sure that the growing of the business, of the actual business, does take place, and therefore savings play a very important role in that regard. And then spending on capital equipment by firms is called investments. Remember, when you spend money on capital equipment, I'm going to pull that down. So here we have the spending on capital equipment. So this equipment is used to generate income. So it's used to manufacture products that can be sold in order to generate income. So if you purchase or you spend on capital equipment, then the investment is guaranteed, because from there you will be able to sell the products that you've manufactured, and that will bring income into the business. So we call that an investment. So when you buy an asset that can be used in the business in order to grow, to generate income, that is regarded as investment. So you're not just buying the item because you like the item. You're buying the item because you know that the item will help you to generate income. Okay, so now we've looked at the different participants that we find in the circular flow model. But now, how do they interact with one another? So this is important. I've looked at past papers in grade 12, and I often come across this question where they ask you to show the interaction between the different participants in the economy. It's all good to know what they do or the role that they play in the circular flow, but also you need to be able to give more details in terms of the interaction that actually happens between the different households. So that will be the next focus or what the item that we'll be looking at just now. Okay, so let's go up again. So we're looking at the participants in the interaction between the different participants. Okay, so I'm going to start with the households, because it's important that we put ourselves first as consumers, because without us or the households, then there wouldn't be any business activity taking place. So the important thing that we need to note is that households provide the production factors to the producers or the firms. So we have the production factors which I listed earlier on. But the one that they often need from the households is the labor, because you need people to actually make or to manufacture products. You can't just rely on machinery. You need people to operate the machinery or the equipment during a production process. So we will provide the production factors to the firms in order for them to manufacture products that would be consumed by the households. And then the households will receive income. Okay, so that's how we represent income. In return, that will be rent. If we are renting out our property or our land to a firm or to a producer, then they will have to pay us rent on a monthly basis, depending on what the lease agreement says or the rental agreement. Also, they pay us wages because we contribute our skills and expertise. So we will agree on a certain amount that they can pay us on a weekly or on a monthly basis. And also interest, when we save up, we earn interest in our investment, and then profits as well will be part of income. Okay, so when we talk about income, we're talking about the rent that we receive, the wages that we get paid on a weekly basis, the interest that we've earned on our savings, and also the profits that come from entrepreneurship. So when I spoke earlier on about the return or the remuneration that we get as households, I showed you that for entrepreneurship, it's profit, for capital, it's interest, and for labor, it's wages, and for land, it is rent. Okay, so that is the remuneration from the factors of production. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next point. Okay, so households purchase the goods and services from the firms. Okay, so we know that the firms manufacture the goods and services. We have needs that we want to satisfy, and we are not self-sufficient. So in order for us to satisfy these needs, we have to approach the firms because they are the ones that manufacture products that we need in order to satisfy our needs. Not just products, but also services as well. So I don't want to just focus too much on products, but we also need certain services in order to add comfort into our world or into our well-being. Firms receive income from sales revenue. So once you have manufactured products, you're going to sell those, and then you're going to receive income, which is called sales revenue. Okay, so remember, if the sales are good, it means that there's more money coming into the business. Hence, the businesses, particularly when they are dealing with goods, they often are too focused on sales, because if they are getting the product to the consumer, if the consumer is buying the product, then they know that they're laughing all the way to the bank. And I know you want to be in that position one day where sales just go up and you just more ching-ching going into your bank account. And then also firms receive income from sales revenue as well. Okay, so if you have certain services that you offer, if you are a legal advisor, for example, that is a service. So people come to you for advice. You also consult on labor issues. So for the service that you offer, you generate income. So they also get revenue in terms of that. So this is it shows us the interaction between the household and the firms or the producers in the circular flow, that there is an interdependence that exists between the parties that we have just discussed on this section. Moving right along. So now we're still talking about the households over here and the firms. So they purchase goods and services from the foreign sector as imports. So remember, I said earlier on, as a country, we are not self-sufficient, and therefore we rely on other countries to supply us with certain goods and services because we don't have the capacity, or our climate doesn't allow for us to plow those products, or to have a process where we manufacture them internally, and therefore we'll have to rely on the external or the foreign countries to supply us with those products. So that's why we import, because it's either we have limited and we need more, or we don't have that particular product at all, and therefore we have to rely on other countries to bring that. And that's the representation of the imports in the circular flow model. And then the foreign businesses receive money from firms and households, because now we need these items, and therefore we are prepared to pay for them. So we have the financial resources because we want to acquire these services, or we want to have access to this product, and therefore the foreign sector will benefit through imports, because it's us paying them for the goods and services that we need. And then moving on to the firms over here, they sell goods and services to the foreign sectors, and this is called exports, and that is the representation on the circular flow model. Okay, it's good for us when we export our products into outside countries or into international countries, because often their currency is stronger than us, and it gives us quite a nice cash injection into our economy. So exports are very much encouraged. They are good for local businesses and local farmers, and we know that the wine industry is doing really well because our winery is quite popular in the foreign market. So there are countries that look forward to receiving South African wine. So in that space, we seem to be doing really well. But if we are going through a drought, Obviously, there will be some setbacks in terms of revenue because we're not getting enough rain, and therefore the actual production is delayed. Then moving on to our next point, the households and firms pay taxes to the government. Okay, so we over here and the firms pay taxes to the government in order to receive public goods, which we chatted about earlier on. So the public goods play a very important role in the economy, because without the public goods, it will be a crisis. Imagine if we didn't have access to the public schooling and also the public healthcare, the police services that we've got. I mean, our country would be in a big crisis. So it is important that we acknowledge the role that government plays in providing these services, because without these services, we will be unable to meet our basic needs or to survive in that matter. So the money that you pay as households and businesses to the government in form of income tax really does play an important role. So we're just going to now go to a short ad break, and then we'll continue right after this.